This course explores ideas related to moral leadership. Let's get started. First, let's agree on a definition. Moral leadership is about holding or manifesting high principles for proper conduct. We all know that leaders face many pressures that challenge our ability to do the right thing. The most dangerous obstacles for leaders are personal weaknesses and self-interest rather than full-scale corruption in an organization. That's why sticking to one's core values in the face of pressure is one key part of leading authentically and ethically. Leaders carry a tremendous responsibility for setting the ethical climate and acting as a positive role model for others. Leaders signal what matters through their behavior, and when leaders operate from principles of selfishness or greed, many employees come to see that type of behavior as being okay. Ethical leaders aren't preoccupied with their own importance. They keep the focus on employees, customers, and the greater good, rather than taking every opportunity to satisfy their own self-interest, feed their greed, or nourish their egos. Unethical leaders typically pay more attention to gaining benefits for themselves than the organization, the larger society, or their followers. Ethical leaders tend to share the credit for success and accept the blame when things go wrong, whereas unethical leaders often take the credit for followers' accomplishments and diminish the dignity of others by treating people with discourtesy and disrespect. But leadership is not merely a set of principles with no association with right or wrong. Moral leadership is about distinguishing right from wrong and doing right, seeking the just, the honest, the good, and the right conduct in achieving goals and fulfilling purpose. Leaders have great influence over others, and moral leadership uplifts people and enhances the lives of others. Immoral leadership, on the other hand, takes away from others in order to enhance oneself. Leaders most often know what's right. The question becomes how they choose to act on it and what internal strengths and external policies and processes are in place to enable them to follow through on doing the right thing. Research has consistently found a direct relationship between the higher levels of moral development and more ethical behavior on the job, including less cheating, tendency towards helpfulness of others, and reporting of unethical or illegal acts. That's because the servant leader is servant first. It begins with a natural feeling that one wants to serve and to serve first. There is a leadership continuum on which the focus of leadership shifts from the leader to followers. Let's take a look. The traditional understanding of leadership is that leaders are good managers who direct and control their people. Followers are obedient subordinates who follow orders. At this stage, leaders set the strategy and goals, as well as the methods and rewards for attaining them. Subordinates are given no voice in creating meaning and purpose for their work, and no direction as to how they'll perform their jobs. This leadership mindset emphasizes tight top-down control, employee standardization and specialization, and management by impersonal measurement and analysis. Teamwork has become an important part of how work is done in most organizations. Studies indicate that around 70% of the largest U.S. organizations have adopted some kind of employee participation program or shifted to team design. However, many of these programs do not redistribute power and authority to lower-level workers. Employees are expected to make suggestions for quality improvements, act as team players, and take greater responsibility for their own jobs, but they've not been allowed to be true partners in the enterprise. This is what we call participative management. Moving along our continuum, stewardship is a pivotal shift in leadership thinking. Stewardship means that leaders are guardians and curators of organizational resources and values, and they place long-term interest in the organization first. As stewards, leaders empower followers to make decisions and have control over how they do their own work. Servant leadership takes stewardship assumptions about leaders and followers one step further. Servant leaders transcend self-interest to serve the needs of others, to help others grow and develop, and to provide opportunities. That's because servant leadership begins with the natural feeling that one wants to serve and serve first. There's been an explosion of interest in the concept of leader as servant in recent years. Servant leadership was first described by Robert Greenleaf in his book Servant Leadership. You should take a look. There are 4 basic precepts in Greenleaf's model. 1. Put service before self-interest. 2. Listen first to affirm others. 3. Inspire trust by being trustworthy. And 4. Nourish others to help them become whole. The servant leader's top priority is to serve employees, customers, shareholders, and the general public. Leadership flows out of the act of service because it enables other people to grow and become all that they're capable of being. Courage is all about strength in the face of pain or grief. Courage is the mental and moral strength to engage in, persevere through, and withstand danger, difficulty, or fear. The bottom line is, courage means accepting responsibility. Leaders make a real difference in the world when they're willing to step up and take personal responsibility. Some people just let life happen to them. Leaders make things happen. Courageous leaders create opportunities to make a difference in their organizations and communities. And courage often means nonconformity. Leadership courage means going against the grain, breaking tradition, reducing boundaries, and initiating change. Leaders are willing to take risks for a larger, ethical purpose, and they encourage others to do so. Courage also means pushing beyond your comfort zone. To take a chance and improve things means leaders have to push beyond their comfort zones. When people go beyond that comfort zone, they encounter an internal wall of fear. And that's why it's important that courage means asking for what you want and saying what you think. Leaders have to speak out to influence others. However, the desire to please others, especially the boss, can sometimes block the truth. Everyone wants approval, so it's difficult to say things when you think others will disagree or disapprove. But finally, courage also means fighting for what you believe. Courage means fighting for valued outcomes that benefit the whole. Leaders take risks, so they do so for a higher purpose. So what does courage have to do with leadership? Acting like a moral leader requires personal courage. To practice moral leadership, leaders have to know themselves, understand their strengths and weaknesses, know what they stand for, and be nonconformists. Honest self-analysis can be painful, and acknowledging one's limitations in order to recognize the superior ability of others takes some personal strength of character. In addition, moral leadership means building relationships, which requires listening, having significant personal experiences with others, and making yourself vulnerable. Leaders oppose unethical conduct that requires courage. Whistleblowing means the disclosure of illegal, immoral, or unethical practices in an organization, and a leader is willing to do so. Leaders have personal courage. How does a leader find the courage to step through fear and confusion and act despite the risks involved? All of us have the potential to live and act courageously. Courage comes easy when we fight for something we really believe in. And finally, courageous leaders take small steps. In most cases, finding courage is a deliberate act. Courage can be thought of as a decision-making skill and is developed through conscious thought and practice. Courageous leaders are not reckless or foolhardy. They typically are people who have developed skills and resources they need to take a difficult stand or to pursue a tough course of action. Courage means having the mental and moral strength to confront, persevere through, and withstand danger, difficulty, and fear. Courageous leaders accept responsibility, take risks, and make changes. They speak their mind, and they fight for what they believe.